So since I now have two lights in my setup, two colored lights, RGB lights to be specific, I thought it'd be fun to try some color combinations depending on what movie or show I'm talking about. Let me know what you think. I'm playing around with different settings to see what kind of looks cool. So let me know. Raya and the Last Dragon was directed by Carlos Lopez Estrada and Don Hall, and features the voices of several Asian American actors including Kelly Marie Tran and Awkwafina. In the fantasy world of Kamandra, Raya is a princess who goes on a journey to track down the Last Dragon and save the world from an evil force called the Drun. This movie is notable both because it's the first Southeast Asian princess we've seen in a Disney movie, but it's also the second time that Disney is using this premiere access strategy where you have to pay $30 extra to be able to watch this on the service. Now, while I do understand, especially in these times, it's kind of hard to shell out $30 for one movie, but I do actually think this one is worth it, and I'll explain why. First of all, this is a very action-packed movie with beautiful animation. This is probably the most action-packed Disney princess movie we've seen since, like, Mulan. Like, not the live-action one, but the one from the 90s. Plus, it features so many great characters and a really great story. One thing I really enjoyed about this movie was the world building. It doesn't feel ham-fisted. It doesn't feel like they're trying to set up another franchise. They're just very focused on telling this specific story within this movie, which we don't get a lot nowadays because everybody wants to start a new franchise because that seems to make the most money. As I mentioned, there's also great characters. This is a very full world. My favorites are the Khan baby, who we see in some of the trailers, and Captain Bond, who is a little boy they find along the way. Those two were definitely standouts for me. Also, there's some great voice performances across the board, especially Kelly Marie Tran. Now, in terms of performances, let's talk about Awkwafina. So, I'll admit, a few years ago, I wasn't a huge fan of her work because I didn't exactly like how she was so kind of over the top. It wasn't until The Farewell that I really saw what she was capable of because she was actually being more genuine in that movie. So I was excited to see more projects with her in it after that. Like Jumanji, she was great in that. Here, I think she's good. I think she was a good fit for this character. She wasn't the funniest character in the movie, but she did play off of Kelly Marie Tran's character and the other characters really well. Now, this kind of ties into the theme. So both Kelly Marie Tran's character, Raya, and the dragon, they have very distinct points of view because this whole movie actually, for me, felt like the perfect movie to release in a pandemic because the whole theme is about the world coming together, trusting each other, and having a more optimistic view of the world. Raya is a character I really related to because she's very pessimistic about humanity after what she witnesses as a child. She puts her trust in someone and she's betrayed, and all this betrayal leads to a huge catastrophe that everybody pays the consequences for, so it's very understandable why she doesn't want to deal with other people anymore or she doesn't trust people. But the dragon Sisu is the opposite. She's very hopeful, optimistic. She sees the potential in people. She believes you can give someone a gift and they'll be friends with you. So these two butting heads I think worked really well, but it also kind of speaks to the world we're living in today, especially in this pandemic. I really related to this struggle because it's something I've been going through, and I think a lot of people have been going through in this pandemic time because it's kind of hard to trust people around you to do the right thing because it seems like every time you try and give them that opportunity, it doesn't seem to go well, at least in my opinion, you know, when it comes to mask mandates and staying at home when you should. Like, it's kind of hard to be optimistic in these times, but I think this is the movie that kind of gives you that message of it's okay, you gotta just take the first step and trust people and hope that things go well. And I think that's a really great message, especially in this time that we're living in. Also, I really appreciated that this was a fantasy action movie first and foremost. It was an animation, of course, it was a family movie, but first and foremost, this was a fantasy action movie, and there was really great action scenes, really great fight choreography. And of course, this is a Disney movie, so you know they're gonna hit you in the feels, and I think they did really well here again. Another thing with Disney is that they do make a lot of musicals and movies that involve music, people singing, and I'm kind of happy this movie had no singing in it because they could just focus on the action and the fantasy. Another part of this movie that I also found really compelling was this rivalry between Raya and this other princess from one of the other rival nations. I thought their whole dynamic worked really well. The reason why they were at odds with each other made so much sense, and it kind of fed into Raya's perspective of the world, which I thought really played well into the themes of the whole movie, which is, again, trust, working with people around you, making the world a better place together. The verdict. I think Raya and the Last Dragon is solid. I personally think this movie is definitely worth the $30, especially if you have a big family. It technically works out cheaper than going to the movies to see it, but also I think it's important to support these original movies. When they did this for Mulan, I was not going to pay for that because it's a remake, a live-action remake of a movie we've seen before, so I didn't think that was worth it. But this one, I think it is. If this movie does well on here, I think they'll be more open to putting more movies like it, more original movies on Disney+. But also, I know this is kind of a slim chance, but maybe if this does well, they might consider putting Black Widow on the service, which would be really great because at this point, I'm not sure if we're going to be safe by May. I don't know if that's going to happen. And if that gets pushed back again, then the whole MCU gets pushed back. And who knows how much confusion that's going to cause. So ultimately, I think this is worth the $30, but I also totally understand if you can't do that right now, because I know a lot of people are under a financial strain because of the pandemic and stuff. So I totally understand, but I definitely think it's worth your money. So those are my thoughts on Raya and the Last Dragon. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.